I'll tell you how quick I've seen businesses in fairly short order, we're talking 90 days or less, get them on a radically different path than they've been on before. That's very possible. If you don't have premium pricing, if you don't know how to justify premium pricing, you are doing it wrong. That's a blanket statement I can make across industries, across businesses. Doesn't matter what you do. Doesn't matter if you're a solopreneur or have a 100-person team. I don't care if you're a W-2 employee. You should have a premium price attitude.
What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolfe, Gathering the Kings podcast, coming back to you again today with another king on the stage, another bearded king, my brother, Colin Sanburg. How we doing?
Doing well, man. I got a little work to get to your level of beard, but I'm working on it.
That's all right. It just takes about an hour and a half a day. There's no, I'm just kidding. I don't have
got a whole team.
Any
got
sort
a beard team.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that kind of think that, but just keep it brushed and put some oil in it. That's all about all I do.
Right. There you go.
Colin, tell us what kind of business that you got, my man.
Yeah, so I've got a few different businesses. My first couple businesses were in the manufacturing space, not super exciting, but good old industrial.
Yeah.
And then actually did another one that was a industrial kind of distribution business, and I still own those. But the latest one I'm really excited about is called FinElevate, and we are profitability consultants. So, you and I were kind of talking about this. A lot of businesses have that challenge, especially as they start to grow. They go, into the seven figures and keep going.
Yeah.
Sometimes the problem is they're growing too fast, and all of a sudden they start getting caught up in the idea of let me grow my way to profitability instead of sustain profitability as I grow. So that's one big challenge we help people with, and some are just hey, they're making a little bit of money, but it's not anywhere close to the benchmarks and the idea that they know within their industry is possible. So.
Right.
We're kind of I hate to tell people fractional CFO because I think it has a little bit of the wrong connotation. This idea of like, let me give you this big strategy and then good luck.
Yeah.
Man, that's the opposite of how we work. We know profitability is kind of a day-to-day grind, discipline.
Yeah.
And so we have a playbook, and that's what it says, right? It's basically, hey, you're here. We want to get you there. We know what it's going to take, and just kind of grind it out and get discipline and let the business owner focus on making money through sales and good ops. We help hold down that finance seat. So
I love that. There's a lot of wiggle room here that we're going to be able to play with because, even in the companies that I've got, this conversation, especially when you're in that scenario where you've just grown quickly. In fact, I was just telling you about one of our Gathering the Kings members who, in essence went 1 to 10 million, like super fast.
Yep.
And was kind of looking around going, holy moly, what do I do? And for the entrepreneur listening right now, that it's like, well, what do you mean? What do you do? Like you're rolling in money. It's like, well, I mean, possibly, but there's a lot of, leakage when it comes to fast growth, and profitability is attached to how well you are at those things, right?
Yeah, believe it or not, to your point, I think that's one of the common misconceptions. People assume like if I grow rapidly, I'll make way more, exponentially more money. And the truth is leakage. I mean, you said that word. That's the perfect word for it. It's like you've got a boat with 1,000 little holes in it, and now instead of maybe if you're $1 million company, the business owner can plug every leak and own that. Now it takes a team. Now it takes the entire organization having discipline, and that's not something you can snap your fingers and do overnight. So
love
that.
It makes me think of a conversation I was having with actually somebody that had on the show here, pretty large business owner, but he was like, Chaz, we were going through some numbers in some depth, and he's been part of the GTK group as well. But he's like, look, we had a miscellaneous category, and we were buying things for projects, water removal, shop vacs and ladders and just stuff. But he's like, but we had no process on where that stuff went after that project. And so we were buying like $600,000 worth of stuff every year.
Yeah.
Just on repeat.
Yep. Oh my gosh.
And so for some people who aren't even doing 600,000 in revenue, or like, oh my gosh, what a waste. But it's like, again, it's not out of malice. It's not out of, like this business owner doesn't want to win. There's a lot of holes in the boat always, typically. And the bigger that you get, the bigger the boat gets, the bigger the holes get.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. And the further they are from you as the owner, right? Wherever
That's
you
right.
happen to be at the moment. So yeah. No,
So
that's
good.
a good, oh man.
I can see you like, just let me get my hands on that guy.
Well, and hey, I've been there. So that's part of it is like, don't don't misconstrue this as like I've got this perfect, track record myself. I mean, I've lived through all these,
Yeah.
experiencing myself. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested to kind of use this as an opportunity to bridge because you in essence come from what is Cody Sanchez said, boring businesses. You come from an industry of boring business, and now
Yep.
you've kind of got this new way of thinking about profitability and helping other entrepreneurs do the same. That's a totally different business. You're obviously excited about it, but why is my question? Why the transition? Why put all your effort into something like this as opposed to the ones that are already on autopilot that you could probably just sail away into the sunset for?
Yeah. It's a great question. So, when I came up through the business, my first business, small manufacturing company, I ended up taking it over as CEO, ran it for 15 years almost. But I always came from a finance seat. So in other words, I wasn't passionate about sales. I wasn't passionate about the operations product side. I really just kind of looked at this from just the way I gravitated in business when I first started, early 20s,
Yeah.
gravitated to the finance seat. And so I kind of ran the company that way, and really changed the company through the way I looked at it from a financial standpoint. So it always made sense to me. I thought that was just kind of what being a business owner was. Didn't realize that was a little bit of a different twist than most people
Hmm.
have on it. And so as I got into my second business and helped, my partner there, he's CEO, I helped him with kind of that finance piece and looked up one day, realized I was doing this role for my different companies, and knowing a bunch of different entrepreneurs like you do, I realized, man, this is a pretty rare take on it. And, most people in their business are like, well, I don't know. Do I talk to my banker? Do I talk to a CPA? And it's like, man, those guys are not going to help you make more money. That is not what they wake up every day thinking about. That is not what they're wired for. And so it just kind of got me excited about this idea. I know through COVID, I was given advice to a lot of different business owners that I'm in contact with about how to look at, what was happening in the world. And
Yeah.
so this was just an exciting, opportunity for me to kind of extend that beyond just my own network into, and how can I turn this into something that'd be value added for a lot of people?
Yeah. Yeah. The opportunity there kind of presented itself, but as a business owner, like I can see the different levels. Of course, like, yes, it's nice to have the bookkeeping and have the good CPA and be able to have tax strategy and then just the gap there of being able to kind of make better decisions really is what it comes
Yep.
down to. I
Yep.
also like how you're bridging, and I want you to kind of expound on this a little bit, but how are you bridging the gap between that finance that gosh, we're not profitable or we are profitable, but we know we can be more profitable. But how is that linked specifically then to sales and operations? You kind of made that comment, but how does that work?
Yeah. So, one of the very first things that we do, I would say two really clear things. One first thing we do is we dive right into people's data. So I'll give you the example. We work with digital marketing companies as an example. But it's true in any type of business. It's frequent that we come into a business and their sales and marketing kind of front end speaks one language. Their
Mhm.
operations speaks a second language, and their financial speaks a third language, right? And what I mean by that is, like, let's take a project based, digital marketing company. However many projects they're doing is the way the operations. That's the way the team experiences it. That's a story everybody knows. But sales may be forecasting in terms of number of leads
Sure.
or dollar amounts that they think they're going to land. And that's great, but you can't communicate that easily back to an ops team. So if we
Right.
say, hey, we're looking to land this big deal, it's much harder for people to really understand what that means. And then to take that a step further, let's say that it's the projects that everybody's working on, and we even get pushed that into the sales. But if the business owner and the executive team can't look at the financials and see how many projects that represents, it's just now purely in dollars and cents. That's not something you can go back and motivate a frontline operations person with. Like, look
Yeah.
how much money we generated over here.
Right.
As they get
Right.
more sophisticated, as people become more, knowledgeable, that's a great goal to push them toward. But to start with, what we love is, like, we've got one, they make videos. So we've now brought it down to, okay, how many leads do you have in terms of number of videos? It's not just how many different individuals that they represent or how many companies or how many dollars, like how many videos. Now, how
Mhm.
many videos you get done today, this week, this month?
Yeah.
Now we're speaking that language. Now, when we do that with the financials as well, and it's revenue and number of videos,
Yeah.
it's, how many videos we got done on the ops side, it starts to change the way the people within the team, and now everyone's pulling in the same direction.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge one, is getting that, I call it like a common size. So meaning we got one common unit of measure that we're able to bring across all areas. And then the second piece I'll add is, getting the team leveled up. And how we do that is exactly through that same process. So we start out with getting it to typically the operational common size that everyone's already familiar with. They know how many videos we're making.
Sure.
So by doing it with videos, now we get the sales team speaking that language. We get the finance side speaking that language.
Right.
Now we can share with the team like, hey guys, last month we did, 47.6 videos. That's how much our revenue was.
Yeah.
And so people start to go like, oh man, okay, I get it. I get it. And so then as you layer on, okay, what does revenue mean? Why does a company have to be profitable? What's happening on the balance sheet? You start layering on more of the complexity,
Yeah.
and the team can take it in. They can actually adapt to it. And so, like I said, when you got a big boat, you can't have a business owner trying to plug every single hole. They've got to get a group that can do that. And one of the best ways to do it is level up your team on the finance.
Yeah. Well, in the common language, do you find that every one of your customers, or maybe even all the businesses that are listening here today, is there a common denominator, product name, language like video that you've used for that client? Does that apply to every business?
I would say every business can find one. And that really should be one of the very first missions. Think about your business, right? If you were to talk to your team tomorrow, let's just assume you're not doing big time open book. You don't have every number available to your team. Let's just assume that for the sake of this example, that's not the case. Okay. But if you walk into your facility, whatever type of business you're in, whether it's retail, whether you're running some sort of an online business, whether it's a services business, product, and you say, man, we're really busy today, we have blank going on. Like, what is that blank?
Yeah.
That's my starting point for figuring out what the best common size is. So like I was talking with a dentist last week, and for the dentist office, it's, hey, we've got how many cleanings, which is like a very recurring kind of a good baseline. And then they've got like, hey, how many big procedures are we doing? Right. And so they've got two really clear common size. And so when we're talking about what a busy week would be, or we're looking at their financials, we should be speaking in those two.
Yeah.
So I would say 2 or 3 maximum. And again, start in the middle with what everyone in the business knows and experiences, what the story of busy or slow would mean,
Yeah, that's good.
and then build your way out from there.
Yeah, it's good. I think that storyline, even the way that you said the sentence of, hey, we're having a busy day today because we have a lot of blank, right?
Yep.
I
Yep.
think everybody would be able to answer that question, and kind of lowers or maybe it brings simplicity to what could be a complex situation where it's like, okay, well, we've got lots of products or services. I can remodel all kinds of things in our construction business. Baseline would be, whatever it is that you would fill in with that common denominator.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I'll say that a lot of people, because they, owners get lost in the sauce of kind of the financials. It's like a lot of lines, there's big numbers, little numbers. They start bouncing around, right? It's like,
Yeah.
It's like me when I'm being too chaotic and I try and read. I'm like, I'm trying to get to the last sentence, the first sentence, and the middle all at the same time.
Totally.
It's like none of it makes any sense, right?
Yeah.
So start really, really simple, right? If you're a restaurant, it may be like, how many butts in seats?
Right.
And what happens is people start going, well, there's a kid at we got a kids menu, and then we got this menu, and are they drinking? Are they not? It's like, hold on, don't overcomplicate it. How many butts in seats this week, this month, today? Start there. You can always add on wrinkles of complexity, but you have to start like unbelievably simple, because everyone on the team instantly understands simple. But what we sometimes do is we want to like share our knowledge and the nuance of the business through this much more complex, 15-layer system. And then nobody ever understands it. And so it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, you're bringing a lot of manufacturing talk to accounting, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
you're saying, hey, efficiency, simplicity, all of these things matter really in every part of the business or in every industry, not just manufacturing. But that's like huge in manufacturing. That's how we make money, is to do it easier and faster.
Yes.
And so I like the almost like you're pulling from your experience to be able to help, but I find that a lot of entrepreneurs listening here today, but also, high level entrepreneurs that have been doing business for 10, 15, 20 years, when you say finances, a lot of them go, I don't know, like,
Yeah.
they kind of stay away from it. A, because there's a lot of complexity, or that there appears to be. And as we've walked through several of our clients through just winning in all areas, as we call it in Gathering the Kings, One of those is in your business, and I don't get as detailed as you do, but the reality is that it's not that difficult. You've just had this big thing in your mind about what the finances are. It's probably made you a little nervous because you're not a numbers guy. Most entrepreneurs are a little all over the place, or a lot
Yep.
of it. And numbers and that don't really go well together, at least naturally. And so what would you tell that person listening who's like, I don't know, man, like I'll just kind of stay away from that. It'll kind of work itself out. I just look at the bank account. It seems to be there's some money in there, and I'll work with it.
Hey, that's incredibly common, right? And I think that's how probably 95% of all business owners start
Yeah.
is, hey, I've got money in the bank. I'm okay. I've got less money than I need to have. I'm not safe. Like, what am I going to do? And interestingly, almost every business owner started out and they had to figure out sales or they wouldn't have survived at all. Then they had to figure out delivery and ops or they wouldn't have gotten any more business beyond that first wave, right?
Yeah.
And so they kind of are like, they feel like with the finance piece, exactly to your point, it's kind of the skeleton in the closet for a lot of business owners. And maybe up to $500,000, maybe up to $1 million, you're able to get away with that. You're able to just run it off of the kind of bank balance and say, hey, we're okay or we're not. Figure out how to make a little bit of money. Now I just kind of keep rolling it over, right?
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, the complexity starts to kick in. And again, you can't lead someone who's, they're not informed about the finance side. You're not informed about the finance side. Now they're making financial decisions on your behalf.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. It just doesn't work, right? And so you can either be, the financial expert, which vast majority of people are not going to be, or you can just recognize like, hey man, one of the best things about being an entrepreneur is being able to say like, hey, I don't know jack about that. Like, I'm going to go figure something out.
That's right.
Will I ever be great? Probably not. Will I get good enough where it's not the thing that kills me? Yes, I have to.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of what I recommend to business owners. Like, hey, don't run and hide, man. The skeleton's not leaving the closet.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to become Warren Buffett. You don't have to fall in love with it. It's just like, it's part of being a pro, man. It's part of being a pro, right?
Hey, kings and queens, Chaz Wolfe. I want to talk to you about something that's super important to me. We put a lot of time and effort, we meaning myself and my team, into this podcast, into the content that goes out every single day. And if you have been getting any sort of value or insight from this, we want it to be able to reach other business owners too. So we would love if you would like, comment, share, leave a review, post, share again, all of the things on social media, on all the different platforms, or even on the podcast mediums of Apple and Spotify. We would love to be able to get our content into more hands, more entrepreneurs, so they can grow their business as quick as possible. Together, we are building a community of like-minded entrepreneurs who are committed to growing their businesses to new heights. So let's do this. Let's help each other. Let's help each other grow. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. One of our core values, I guess, probably as a business, but also just personally, I can see you as well, because that's what you're talking about, is basically the excellence. Right? Be a professional. Don't just wing your business. If you're going to be a business owner and you want to win at whatever level, like why wouldn't you want to do it well or with excellence? And so some of maybe a mindset that I had to shift a while back, especially as a personality who kind of likes to be the orchestrator, right? I like being in the middle of all of it, and some people might say that's control, and I kind of like it. What I've understood, though, is that I can't always do it all, especially as my businesses have grown. And so the word or the phrase co-pilot has always served me well. And it's actually why I love your model, because I can be in the finance. I should, as the entrepreneur, be in the finance. I need to understand the finance and the reporting and understanding what the story is that's being told. I don't have to necessarily be the guy who is the expert in the finance. I can have a CPA, one, and I can have a guy like you that's helping me understand the story. I still need to understand the story and be able to make decisions in the business based on the story. But I don't have to be the guy, the only guy in the pit making like the make sense of the numbers. Does that make sense?
Oh, I love that. No, and to me, no one has ever really reached the high levels of success we're all striving for without that attitude.
That's right.
And without finding, that guy or that woman that you can trust that can take on that area.
That's right.
And have that level of expertise. But to your point, it is not a matter of abdication, right? It is not a matter of like, oh man, Susie's got that. I'd never even look at it. I'm not aware of it. I have no knowledge of it. Yeah. That's not what success looks like. That's what getting burned really, really ugly looks like.
Yeah.
And so, no, I love that. And the best part is, once you embrace that that's part of, the growth that you need to go on, you'll have a tremendous amount of pride as you level up. That's one thing I've always found, right? There's areas of business that are not my passion. I dive in, I become competent, maybe not ever an expert, but I become competent. And that's a major source of pride and confidence that, like, hey man, yeah, I've got my chop. I'm not a manufacturing guy per se, but man, we could talk manufacturing for hours because it was an integral part of my business to have that competence. And so I'm going to develop it, whether it's like lights me up or not. That's just like you said, as being a professional.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of businesses, kind of switching industries here, but I see myself as well as others that I've seen that have been burned, as you've said, by marketing experts. And, it's kind of like the new thing. If you haven't been burned by at least 2 or 3 of them, you're not a real business owner, But that's what I've seen with my own experience years ago. And then also now, entrepreneurs now, it's like I hired this guy or gal or team to take care of my marketing. And I just let them do it. And then I got no results. And 3 months later or a year later, I spent all this money and I have no different situation. And it's because I didn't actually know it well enough to be able to hold them accountable. And so that co-pilot piece is that I have to be competent enough to be able to say, not only do I understand, I don't have to be the expert, but I need to have an intelligent conversation with Colin about my finances to know Colin's doing the right stuff, but also B, just to be able to understand what he's telling me so I can make good decisions in the business. What would you say to that?
Yeah, no, that's the exact right way to look at it. I mean, that's where, like I said, I start with that story because everybody knows a story, right? Every business owner can tell you what's working, what's not, what the good times feel like and look like, and what's happening, and what the bad times feel like and look like, and what's happening.
Right.
All we have to do is tie that back to the numbers. That's all it is. Once you can associate the story in your head with what the numbers say on the page, it all clicks. And 95% of what you need to know. I'm a big fan of the Pareto principle, right? The 80-20. It's like, man, get the 20% of the knowledge that'll get you 80% of what you need. And it's honestly not that hard to get. Once you have somebody who sits down and goes, hey, remember this? Yeah, that's represented here in your numbers. Remember this? That's represented here in your numbers. Once you start to associate it, and then you just basically watch them and you go, okay, I just experienced this part of the story. I would expect that to look like, and you look and go, okay, yeah,
ding.
Yeah, I'm starting to get what I'm talking about here. And man, that's it. That's as hard as it is. And does that take a year of kind of discipline and focus and looking? Yeah. But again, I don't think it has to be miserable, and it doesn't have to be, accounting 101 and the misery of, it's not a textbook.
Yeah.
It's your business and you can learn it. And then, hey, just like any other part of success, once you click it into gear and it starts to work, man, it's like you're on top of the world, right?
Well, you start to understand how you can make decisions off of a sheet of paper or a spreadsheet as opposed to being in the business. And so really the segue here is really, how do I remove myself or work on the business, as I say, as opposed to in it? Well, this right here, or even just this methodology that we're talking about, is truly the way, because I can even think back to my first business franchise. It's like when I understood the flow of production throughout the day, I didn't have to be in the store. I could look up the app. I could see what time it was, how many orders had been produced, how many were still pending. And I either knew we were either on track or we were behind. And then I could either make a phone call or I could do some other digging to figure out what the rest of the story was. And I didn't have to go anywhere because it was right here. And I could understand the story behind the numbers as opposed to having to be in the physical location. Well, when I had 7 of them in 3 states, that wasn't possible.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's, to your point, and I kind of, I'm an old school guy going back to like E-Myth, Michael Gerber and all that, right? Is basically what you're describing is once you can kind of break your business down systematically like that, whether it's ops side, the sales side, or certainly the finance side, you can then not only kind of interpret at just a glance what's happening, good, bad, or ugly. You then kind of know which levers to pull to address, either optimize or improve or deal with the challenge. And then the beauty is, now that's the first thing you teach a manager, right? And then when you get really good is like, hey, it's your first week, you're a frontline employee. Here's how we know whether this thing's working or not. Mm-hmm. And man, when your business is operating in that way, it gets really, really good.
Yeah.
And to your point, so I love that. That was kind of the E-Myth breakthrough was he said, hey, run your business like it's a franchise, whether you ever intend to do that or not. Because just like you said, there's it's amazing how leveled up you get when it's in 3 states and it's 7 locations and you don't have a choice.
Yep.
It's not optional. It's not like you're living down the street from your one business and you can just go
Pop over.
throw effort at it,
Yep.
right? You've got to get smarter. And so, yeah, if you treat your business like that, whether you ever intend to have multiple or not, you start to be able to take a vacation. You start to be able to train competent people in your business that can actually make decisions on your behalf and not just you sit there, from the command center and go, do this next, you do that, you do this. We've all been there. That's part of the development process. Man, that doesn't scale. And that's a brutal existence. That's honestly worse than being an employee in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause nothing actually, you have a false sense of control or a false sense of not being in it. You don't feel like you're in it every day because I'm not making baskets for the franchise or I'm not on the project on the job site, but still nothing happens unless I'm in the command center in that example that you're giving there.
Yeah. And, you feel the pressure, the weight of entrepreneurship.
Oh yeah.
Which is real. I mean, it doesn't matter even when times are good, when you got a bunch of things going on or you got your one thing, you're all your eggs in that one basket. It doesn't matter where you are in your entrepreneurial journey, the weight is real. And so if you feel that weight and you feel like it's you against the world, that's a horrible combination. Most of us have been there. I get it. I've been there, man. I've been there.
Yeah.
Some days, my bad days, I still feel like I'm there. Right. Oh, yeah. But the reality is you never have a path out of there if you don't level up in the ways we're describing and start to take command in a way that is more systematic and data driven and not gut feel and raw effort.
Yeah. Yeah. You're speaking right to something. I was talking with one of my coaches actually, and the gathering the kings exists, one, to be able to pull entrepreneurs out of that isolation, that heavy, I'm by myself. And it's not that it ever goes away, but when you're with other people, one, and then when you can apply these certain practical things, whether it be in finance or operations or sales, like we've been talking about, that's how you begin to really level up or be able to make better decisions. And the community piece for him, he's kept getting hung up on, like, there's just so many better ways for them to be able to level up. And I was like, yeah, but first you have to realize that they're alone. Like you just said, that weight, especially when they're by themselves, is most of the time it's too heavy. And so the easiest way is to just get into a community and you recognize that like, oh, I'm not the only one with this problem. And even though maybe in that moment you don't have any solutions, and I'm not saying that community doesn't bring you solutions, but I'm just saying even if it doesn't, the fact that you just are not by yourself and you recognize that this is not a big over the top, the world is on me problem and oh my gosh, I'm by myself. You realize that, oh no, there's a lot of other people that are experiencing the same thing, that are trying to figure out their numbers and they're trying to find systems and be able to make good decisions. Oh, well, it now becomes doable. It becomes like I can get courage going, oh, like if you can do it, I can do it. And I can see where he's at and he's, a couple of ticks ahead of me, or he's maybe a couple ticks behind me and he's working on it. Like now I have just belief to be able to reach out to a guy like Colin and go, okay, give me the practicals now to put this into my flow, because I'm a part of a group that says I should be winning in all areas. And guys like Colin help me in the specific area. So I now have a courage to reach out and do the thing. Have you seen this in your own journey, kind of thinking of the isolation piece?
Man, 100%. One of the best things that ever happened to me in my life was at 24, maybe 23, 24, I joined my first mastermind group. And I mean, it changed my life. I wasn't familiar with the concept going into that. It was just, hey, these guys are, and I was a kid, but these are some guys you can learn from. They were twice my age or more.
Right.
And they knew stuff I had never even thought about before. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
But to your point, that was the initial appeal. The thing that stuck with me was the camaraderie and kind of unity that having a group, kind of a band of brothers and sisters who, really just want good things for you.
That's right.
And get it. Like you said, understand what you're going through, have been there, understand the impact on family. I know you talk about that a lot, the impact on, on family, that business, and that maybe a unhealthy business, which happens at times, right? We put all the eggs in that basket. We start neglecting the other side of the fence. All of a sudden, you look up and you're like, man, my life is a wreck. And having business owners who have been on that journey and can go like, man, I was there, here's what I did. Here's how I dealt with it. Here's how I looked at it. I mean, there's nothing in this life to me, that's more valuable than that community.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate the backing there of why the community is important. I guess the piece there of it's the perspective change, right? So when you're around other people who are like you and want good for you, like you're describing, it opens you up to now, okay, now what are the actual steps I need to take? Because they might hear it today on a podcast. They might hear, okay, call Colin, he's your guy, make these moves in your business. But we both know that the reality of that is slim to none, right?
Yep.
They're going to need to take some sort of a lower action first that feels comfortable. And then they're going to go, oh, okay, I now trust Joe. And Joe says, Colin's my guy. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Sounds good. And maybe they've been listening to the show for a year or two and they're like, I trust Chaz. Colin's my guy. I'm going to go research him and I'm going to use him as my financial guy now. But the stepping stone oftentimes is the more comfortable piece. So knowing that maybe some people will take some action here, I actually do want to give them a chance here for the ones that are action takers that don't necessarily need the feel good piece before. From your perspective, from a finance, from like what you do with your clients, what are one or two things they can go do today? Yep. And then of course, for the bigger things, they're going to need to reach out to you and work with you. But what are one or two things they can go do today?
So the first one I'll say, and I'm a big proponent of, be smart with your pricing. Okay. One of the most common pitfalls of early entrepreneurship, and you even see people who are scaling and still have this mindset, is like, hey, it's easier to sell if my prices are low. And maybe that's true. But the reality is once you sell that work, you have to turn around and service it. Right.
That's right.
And so if you don't have premium pricing, if you don't know how to justify premium pricing, you are doing it wrong. That's a blanket statement I can make across industries, across businesses. Doesn't matter what you do. Doesn't matter if you're a solopreneur or have a 100-person team. If you are not charging a premium, because I will tell you that the 99 point carry the 9 forever % of businesses are not Amazon. You're not Walmart. You do not have the scale necessary to have, I'm a low cost leader. Okay. So if you have that, like, well, it works for them, I should try that attitude.
Right.
That is a terrible strategy. And that is a race to the bottom because again, it's the money that comes from your pricing that you reinvest in your team, that you reinvest in developing a premium product, that you reinvest in actually having profit so your business can be stable and you can put money in the bank so that you can actually invest in the next round of whatever you need to do to grow. Right. So, man, that's a huge one. I get on that, I get on that, all the time. That's one you'll hear me drive people crazy with. I just won't shut up about, have a premium price.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. Right. And I've yet to find any business that's like, well, hey, Colin, here's a caveat to that. Yeah. Because it's just the reality is what are we selling? We're selling experience. We're selling customer service. We're selling, we care more than the next company, the next guy, et cetera. That's typically what being a small business represents.
Yeah.
Well, you can't do that on the cheap.
Right.
You just can't. It just doesn't work that way. So, again, don't be crazy. Don't be, be thoughtful about it. But at the same time, have a premium price and be proud about it.
Yeah. One thing that you said in there, sorry to cut you off, but I want to just highlight, because you said such a good point there, is that you said to be able to justify the higher level premium price, which is AKA the experience that you're talking about. And so that now we're talking about now pricing is finance, but over here now we're talking about operations again. And I love you keep tying these things back together because on the operations, if it's an experience that is like none other, and I just keep blowing their mind over and over and over every single step of the process, whether again it's gathering the kings in a mastermind group and their membership experience, or over here in construction, or in franchising with our edible arrangements locations, or in my real estate. Like if I just keep going over and above in these opportunities where people have to live, then rent feels like no big deal, or their membership feels like no big deal. And I can still charge a premium, and it's still, they're like, I would pay double. Chaz should charge me more.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that should be the attitude that your clients have, right? And if you take that attitude that I'm going to get them to there, I need to have a premium price to get it there, right? It just is the reality.
That's right.
And it works for everybody. Yeah, because again, the companies, the people you're working with, they should have a premium price attitude. I don't care if you're a W-2 employee, you should have a premium price attitude, right? Yeah. That should be the way you look at life.
Backed with a premium experience delivery.
Yeah, 100%.
Because we know what it looks like for somebody to say, I'm going to demand a high price, and then like, wait a second, I'm getting the same thing. This is no.
Yeah, no, you're right. But if you have both, hey man, you're going to find a lot of takers. A lot of takers.
That's right.
So the other thing I would say is, we kind of talked about tying your finances back to the story in your business. One thing that I would always recommend is I call it the simple profit formula. It's basically looking at everything on your profit and loss statement from revenue on down. Look at it as a percentage of that revenue. So in other words, let's just say you're doing, $1 million in revenue. I want to look at my sales and marketing expense, my labor expense, my other general overhead expense. And then obviously if you're selling a product or have some sort of cost of goods, look at all of those. We know the cost of goods one, that's margin. Everybody talks about that. What people don't do often enough is really tie the rest of them back as just like a rough percentage and say, hey, if I keep labor at 30% or less of revenue, I'm golden. What people get caught up with is they go like, well, I've got this guy and that lady, and here's my team that I need. Revenues are down, but here's my team. It's like, again, tie it back to data. Don't make it about people. I'm not saying not to care about your people or take good care of your people. That's not at all what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is understand the formula for how your business can make that 20% bottom line or whatever that number is that you need to be aiming for. And with knowing that, you can pretty quickly do some what if scenarios. What if revenue went down by 30%? What if revenue doubled, right? You'll realize quickly some of those percentages and numbers, just like margin, automatically scale up and down with the revenue. And some of them are kind of a fixed cost, like your overhead.
Mm-hmm.
So if I double my revenue and my fixed costs don't change, my
Now
fixed
we're
cost
money.
percentage goes in half. Now we're making cash.
Yeah, that's right.
And so just really learning to look at your business that way. And again, I know it's a little bit of a numbers game and not everybody's a numbers owner, but you can do that on a simple spreadsheet. You can do that on the back of a napkin. You can do that in 15 minutes. Just run your P&L, look at it, group it according to those big groups, and then just ask, like, which of these are an investment? Which of these do I want to hold down? Like overhead, man, rent. How do I do twice as much revenue out of the same rent?
That's right.
If I can do that, I'm really on the path to making good money.
Yeah. Yeah. These are some of the same conversations that we have. So I just want to encourage the listener that if they're jiving with this, that, of course, we're going to put Colin's information. I'll ask him for it here in a second. We'll put it in the show notes. But if you're not jiving with this, if you're confused by this, Colin might be your guy to help you understand this because this is important. I can even think back. I'm in my 20s. I'm in the franchise world. 7 locations, 3 states, 65 plus employees. I'm looking at a cell phone making decisions because that's where the app was. And I could look at the P&L. I can say, you know what? We're high on labor this week. We're high on fruit this week. We're like, just check. It had nothing to do with the actual location. It had everything to do with those higher level inputs that I could then move things around with levers. And so this is huge. And most people, as I can think back to my story, it's like, well, how are you doing all that? I was like, well, first off, it sounds like kind of crazy, but not really. When you really boil it all the way down, oftentimes that person that you're describing is doing less physical work. They're just way more efficient, and they're making decisions at a different level based on inputs and outputs because they understand kind of like how it works. Everything that you've been saying, has this been the story that you've seen as you've helped entrepreneurs kind of get to that level?
Absolutely. Yeah, like you said, it really is. I like when you said boiling it down, right? To its kind of simplest form. That's what this really is we got to boil it down to its simplest form, tie it to the story that you already know. You know the story.
That's right.
Then we start to build it back up and we start to kind of add on layers of complexity. But certain team members are only ever going to get the simplest form, right? Frontline people probably only ever going to hear that simplest form. Get your management team, start leveling them up to where they really understand a little bit more of the simple complexity, let's call it. And then, hey, let's figure out what that goal is. Where do you want to be in 3 to 5 years? Most business owners want to build a business they can hey, I can run it on vacation or sell it.
Right.
Golden. That doesn't happen if you're, the human hole plugging machine that's trying to plug every hole in a giant leaky boat. It's not a great sellable business. Not I'm going to take a 6-week sabbatical. That's not that business. Yeah. So we got to build that from the ground up and do it through the numbers.
And give us some hope here. Give the listener, I mean, maybe it's 2 different scenarios, maybe it's the same. If you've got a guy that's doing less than $1 million in revenue or a guy over $1 million, maybe it's the same, maybe it's different, I don't know, but I'll let you decide. How long can I anticipate? I start working with you this week and I'm doing less than or more than, and I want to get it to that place where I can either go on vacation or I can sell it, where truly I'm not that human element trying to, plug all the holes all at the same time. How long does that take?
I'll tell you, it's a direct reflection of the will of that CEO, that owner, and what they're willing to do. That's it. It's really that simple. So, and interestingly, I've been in a business. My first business was a turnaround. It was all kinds of messed up. That's where I learned a lot of this, right?
Yeah.
Was that business was it was
And a
screwed
lot of
up.
holes.
It had a lot of holes, man, a lot of holes. And so for me, like I very quickly got out of the mindset of like coast with what I've got. It was like we're gonna have to change everything. I'm gonna have to reevaluate, the way we're approaching labor, the way we do our cost of goods. Everything
Yeah.
is gonna have to be redone and fixed. And so I didn't there was no sacred cow, right? And so I'll tell you how quick I've seen businesses we can fairly short order, we're talking 90 days or less, get them on a radically different path than they've been on before. That's very possible. But it comes down to us coming in and say, hey, we're going to have to take an objective look at this and have really candid conversations. And then you're going to have to make some tough calls based on that. And if they're willing to do that, then that's the rate of change. That dictates the rate of change. And if, just like in anything, it's true in sales, true in any type of part of your business, true in your life, right? How fast you want to get in shape.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I can give you the best plan in the world. It could be all the stuff the movie stars do, they come out jacked after, 6 months of training, but if you're hanging out, if you're on the couch, that's not going to be you.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the plan is. So that's a big thing that I push people with is like, hey, how leveled up is your mindset to start this process? And I'll tell you exactly what we need to do. We'll have a really candid conversation. Again, then I'm going to be really respectful of this is your choice. In the end, this is your business. I own my own businesses. No one's coming in from the outside and just tell me what to do and I've got to do it. But, your hunger will dictate your progress.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's true in every area. We both know this, and I'm glad you made it obvious for this as well. It's a phrase that I heard a long time ago, probably 15 plus years ago, but I've always kept close to the vest. It's people do what they want to do. And so if somebody wants to work with you, they will. If somebody wants to work with you and not change, they're going to work with you, pay you, and not change.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody wants to level up and go fast, that's exactly what they're going to do. People do what they want to do, which obviously comes down to a lot of the mindset piece. And I think that the more that we can do this, right? Like the more that we can listen to shows, the more people that we can get around, like Colin, who has done the thing, it helps us have a different perspective. It helps us have that belief that's like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can do this. A lot of guys, especially the guys that haven't hit the $1 million mark yet, they're thinking, oh, well, I can't afford that, right? But you've already mentioned several times here. It's like, no, I can help. I can not only help you get to the $1 million mark, but we can help scale you past that. So it's like, even that in itself is a perspective change for probably some people listening today going, well, I only do 500,000 or 600,000. I guess that's for later when I'm doing millions. But I'm hearing, no, like, let's get things in order now so that way we can get you there faster.
So exactly, hit that million profitably and keep going, right? Because a lot of people start making that false trade of like, well, I've got to grow now, not be profitable now. It's like, no. You got to do both right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I love that. I mean, that's generally what we say is, hey, I've worked with clients as small as a few $100,000. There are solutions that can help them dramatically be able to afford to put the pedal to the metal on growth. Right. Yeah. And I think that's the trap people fall into is like, well, I'm going to grow now, but not be profitable now. Okay. But what are you going to reinvest?
Right.
So
yeah, that old, can I afford to grow?
Yeah.
Question. It's like, well, wait a second. What do you mean? It's like, well,
yeah,
growth is very expensive. And or, I mean, I guess that's a perspective, right? Expensive, right? Or it sounds like it can be calculated and it doesn't have to be, because expensive to me is like a shock. Like if it's calculated and it's planned, then it's not expensive. It's just part of it. And I can choose to make certain decisions along the way that either help me grow or stabilize whatever that is that we're doing in that moment. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And again, part of it's the business model. So we won't spend too much time on that, but I push everybody is like, hey, what's your revenue model? What's your cash income model? What's the operational model that you have? How much of your costs are fixed versus variable? Every one of those in any business is kind of a bit of a range. And so we got to push you to the high end, the best end of that range for every business, no matter what it is. When you're clicking there and you're profitable, man, you'll have all the money to reinvest. It'll be like, oh, dude, we can do this. We can have our cake and eat it too.
That's right. I love that. Well, Colin, tell us first. Actually, I want to ask one more question. We got a little bit of time here. Got a couple more minutes. I want to know. I'm gonna take a different approach here. I'm gonna take you more serious. We've
All right.
been not that this hasn't been serious, but I'm gonna make it more about you. We've been giving a lot of value to the listeners right now. For you though, looking back, you name the time, but just roll the clock back, and I want you to tap the younger Colin on the shoulder, and you whisper something in his ear. Tell us what you tell him.
Mm. Wow, that's a good one. I would say trust your gut with what's not working and act faster.
Mm.
So again, I went through a turnaround in my first business. It took 10 years, man. And now it was ugly when we started, but there were things where I kind of had those, sacred things that were off limits that I didn't, whether it was a team member who really wasn't bought in, whether it was an advisor that really wasn't working, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
There were ones where, my gut was like all the alarm bells are going off and I'm thinking, if I just push through, if I just keep after this, I'll break through. And the reality is I look up now, none of those things are still the same. Every one of those things that I had the gut feeling about all fell by the wayside eventually. And so I realize now the big sacrifice was the time I lost by not making those decisions quicker.
The opportunity there that you gave to the listener to kind of go back for yourself even is huge because you're right. I mean, we're even going to do that this year. We're going to slow a decision that we know that we shouldn't do or that we should have already done. The idea, I think, is that we just get better or faster each time it happens, right? Just a more evolved, process of mindset through those things. So I just think that's super real. So thanks for sharing that. How can we find you? Listener right now is thinking, I want to follow this guy. I want to check out some of his content, or I'm ready to work with him. How can they find you?
Yep. Yeah. So I've got a lot going on LinkedIn these days. That's probably the easiest way. Just Colin Sanburg at LinkedIn. Starting to get my Facebook up and rolling. I'm not quite Chaz yet with the Facebook, but that's coming. We'll get it going there. And then, my website, FinElevate.com. And like I said, man, I'm a multi-business owner. I've been in the mastermind world since I was 23, 24. That's my passion, man. I love other entrepreneurs. I'm going this week to a entrepreneur group, mastermind group that I founded 15 years ago. I'm going on Thursday. So, that's just a passion of mine. I love connecting with people, whether we're going to do business or just get to know each other, help each other. To me, that's the win.
That's awesome. Well, tell it, what's the name of the group? We'll put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah. So it's just a small, group. We don't have memberships or anything. It's just a small group. We call it the Fort Worth Advisory Council.
There you
just
go.
Here in my hometown, Fort Worth.
There you go. Love it, man.
Yeah.
And honestly, I even thinking back to Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich, where the mastermind principle comes from, you can have a group here, group there. Even this right here today is a great example of the mastermind principle. So I don't think that it has to be a specific one that's perfect for any one particular person, but I do think that there's perspective adjustment. There's mindset agitation, right? In a lot of places.
Absolutely. Love it.
I so appreciate you for being here and sharing, not only just from your experience, but you're bringing just a unique service out there. And I think that it's needed beyond the bookkeeping, beyond the CPA going, hey, how do we take your money and your business and your numbers to the next level? So I just appreciate the work that you're doing in the marketplace. Thanks for being here, brother.
Thanks, man.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.